Oh, there we go. Okay, started the recording, so we can start with the presentation itself. Okay. Okay, here we go. So the KYC, or the Know Your Customer, is the process which we use to identify all of our users. The reason for it, once again, is purely your own safety. So when we said we are developing a hybrid in terms of the currency or the ecosystem, that hybrid means that we take things from the centralized and the decentralized systems which are around us. And one of the points from centralized systems, the banking systems, if you will, is indeed the KYC system, or the Know Your Customer system. It's essentially a verification of people who are standing behind a certain account, of course. Now, today, most of people, of course, know how it works regarding the uploading of the documents and all that stuff. But the idea of today's talk is to provide you guys with certain steps and things you may do in order to speed the whole process up. Of course, we make sure to make the process as easier as possible in terms of the suggestions, explanations, knowledge-based articles, all that stuff. But our personal feeling was that it would be a good idea to literally give you a list of tips which may help you to speed the process up. As we know, KYC is necessary for any kind of trading or finalizing of your DAS wallet registration, all that stuff. So that's, of course, the general idea. The idea of KYC is that we need to gather legitimate documents which are actually representing a certain individual who became or is becoming a part of our network. In that sense, again, the idea behind the whole thing is safety. And just like you open your bank account or you register your payment card, the very same logic comes here into place as well. So what we want to do is we want to prevent any kind of a fraudulent activity, any kind of a criminal or illegal activity. So this way, we make sure that you are the actual person who is behind your specific NetLeaders or DAS wallet account. By the way, everything I'm going to talk about today is, of course, linked to both NetLeaders and DAS wallet. Okay, so a couple of more people joined. So once again, we're going to do Q&A later, but at any point you may use the chat option to ask the questions. So I'm going to go through them once the general presentation is over. Okay, so here is the first point and the first tip. A lot of information provided may be incomplete. This means that there are certain documents which do not have all the specific data we need. So for example, if you're identifying yourselves with your ID card or your driver's license, please make sure that that card or the document in general you're using is, of course, having your first and last name, your date of birth, and your picture, which can be used for any kind of a verification or the ID confirmation, if you will. Now, I'm going to stop right here. The idea, this is the way I would like to suggest to people, this is the approach I would like to suggest to everybody who does the KYC verification. When you go to the KYC, by the way, we're recording this, so this may be used for all the new people who are coming into the network. When you use the KYC, at the very beginning of it, at the very first screen, when you type in your your details, the logic I would suggest is to go with the details which are in your own documents, okay? So if you have a specific driver's license, let me give you an example. Your name is James Smith, right? However, a lot of people call you Jim. Please don't enter Jim Smith, okay? So enter your first and last name exactly as they are on your document. So let's put it this way. Let's use the documents you're going to upload later as a blueprint. What are you going to use in the general form which comes first? I know this may sound trivial to some people. However, we all have different habits. You know, the James Smith and the Jim Smith is the classic example. So you have a person whose name is James. but they, for example, got used that everybody is calling them Jim for the whole of their life, and they just enter Jim. We cannot verify that. The banking standard of KYC determines that we need to exactly and specifically verify only the documents which are literally the same, the applications which are literally the same as the general information that is provided on the documents. That's what is causing confusion, okay? That's what we think, that's what we mean when we say that information provided is incomplete. So it's not incorrect, it's just incomplete. It's not the actual information. The very same thing goes for your address, okay? We live in many countries in the world. We all in this community come from all the parts of the world, right? From all the continents. There are different standards in addresses. So some addresses contain the apartment building, the apartment number, the building number, which is, for example, the case in Europe, it may be North America, some parts of Asia, what have you. But for example, in Ireland, it's a completely normal thing to have a PO box, okay? So please do provide your PO box. So again, when you see what's on your document, that should be exactly the thing you're providing in the application. That way, we are enormously speeding the process up. Now, okay, before going to the second point, just one more point to make. People sometimes send us documents which have certain incomplete details. However, per GDPR regulative and per general legal rules, if you will, we are not in a position to tell you exactly what's wrong. Let me give an example and let me explain further. Let's say, for example, that you have a beautiful house on the beach, on the sea, right? And you decided to travel. You have a big luxury house and you decided to travel somewhere for 2 weeks, and the house is going to be empty for those 2 weeks. Nobody on this world is going to leave a map of the house for thieves to enter it, right? That's exactly the thing here. We do not know who is trying, for example, to change data, or we do not know who is trying to log in or try to alter any kind of a detail. We cannot know that. There is no, technologically, there is no way to determine that. That is exactly why we are not in a position to tell you exactly, hey, your apartment building number, actually your building number is wrong. It's not 16, it's 17. We cannot tell you that. That's why when we send you an email and tell you there is something wrong with your address proof, that's the most we can tell you, okay? So it's not like we are lazy or we don't want to do that or anything like that. It's legally that way. We are not in a position. Even easier example, let's say you're trying to log into social media or some sort of a profile, your Facebook profile, for example. When you enter your password wrong, the Facebook, for example, will tell you your email or your password is wrong. See, they'll never tell you which is from the two. That's again a security feature, because you don't want to give clues to somebody who is potentially doing something malevolent or something fraudulent. Let's just say somebody took over your account. Way simpler example than the house, obviously. So what we don't want to do is we don't want to give further idea to a potential malicious person for them to know what is wrong, because then they're going to try to dig out your password or your address number or something like that. So please keep that in mind. That is the sole reason why our emails may seem vague. Actually, it's intentional. That's on purpose. Okay. Okay, here's the good one. It says, make sure documents you sent are the ones we can accept, which means JPG or PNG formats, no PDFs. Again, one of the banking standards. We do not in a position to accept PDF documents. We can only use JPEGs or PNGs. So the good old school pictures. That's all we can provide. So please make sure that the format is right. Actually, the page, when you're uploading documents, the page is explaining the same thing, but this is very important. Please follow those things. And also, please make sure that the size of a file is less than 2 megabytes. Sometimes it happens that people upload files which are less than 2 megabytes, but still are not accepted. So this is my personal, and this is off the record, and unofficial. My personal preference and my personal suggestion to everybody is go with that somewhere between 800 kilobytes and 1 megabyte files. Those files are always accepted. Okay. So which documents are accepted? As you may see here, so it's your passport, your ID card, your driving license, your utility bills, your tax bill, and your bank statement. Here is one trick which is very important. Actually, a couple of them. Let's start with the passport. Of course, a lot of people travel, not so many people. There are people, of course, who don't travel, who do not have a passport, but that's all perfectly fine. However, if you do have a passport, please do use a passport. Okay, so the passport is the international document. As such, it has more legitimacy, if you will. So passports, which you can use and travel all around the world, whether you have a visa or don't, it doesn't matter. You always need to have a passport to cross any kind of a border on this planet. So please use passports first. The system can read passports in the easiest way. Now, some passports do have their address displayed. Some passports do not. We live in a 21st century. A lot of documents have those chips, those biometric things, from which you can use to read the actual passport out and get the actual document. By all means, please do that as well. Now, I mentioned there is an address on some passports. However, we're going to go there in a couple of further steps why you need two documents, one for the address and one for the ID. I'm going to explain that later. The same thing more or less goes for the ID card and the driving license. Again, if they're issued in your country, they're still government documents, which means they have weight. Again, when you upload those, please make sure those general details are there. Your first name, your last name, your date of birth, stuff like that, okay? And of course, the expiration date, which is very important. These first three, so the passport and the ID card and the driver's license, should be at least 6 more months valid from the date you uploaded them. For example, if you uploaded that document on the January the 1st, please make sure it is valid at least until July the 1st in that year, so at least 6 months. The second three, so the utility bill, tax bill, and bank statement have the same rule. However, they need to be valid. Actually, they need to be not more than 3 months old. Now we go into the past. So when you send us that document, please make sure, if you sent it on the June 1st, please make sure they were issued, or actually they were made at least somewhere in April or May, for them not to be too old. Again, not older than 3 months. Okay. The second, I hope everybody is following. Let me just check if everything is fine for now. Okay. Now, as for the addresses, a lot of people get confused with their address in the document or their legal address where they are legally residing. I'm not saying anybody's residing anywhere illegally. I'm just saying you have an address, for example, for a year or so, my official residence was at my parents' house. Let's give it an example. So my official residence is in my parents' house. So the documents and the government has the information that my personal residence is at my parents' house. However, meanwhile, I just went to live with my own, I'm just giving an example, I'm making this up. I just went to live with my own for 1 year. So technically, I live in the apartment or the house of my aunt and uncle, but I'm still legally residing at my parents' house. Let's say that's the example. Please do not mix those two. Technically, you can go to a hotel on 6 months, for example. Some people do that as well. However, it is not your legal place of residence. You cannot legally reside in a hotel as much as I know. So again, we're going to the start of the story. Once you start to do the whole KYC verification, please make sure that you have your documents with you and enter the data from your documents. So if you are, I don't know, if you are from Germany, but you went to live in America, but your German documents tell you that your address is in Berlin, but you use your German documents in America because you went there for a couple of months or whatever, please use your German address. Or you're from Japan and you went to China, or you're from Tanzania and you went to Kenya. It doesn't really matter. The idea is to go to the address, which is your legal residence, okay? Now, it says here, utility bill, tax bill, bank statement. There is one thing that gives you a good idea of what is a quality address proof document, because a lot of people, actually people get more confused with the address proof than the ID. ID is pretty much straightforward. Think about it this way. When you're using the, your address proof, am I sending the document, my mailman or a person from the post office can send me or bring me a package to? So let's say I'm expecting a package from somebody, or somebody sent me something via mail, not the email, by the actual landline mail. So will my mailman be able to bring me the product or the package to this address? If the answer is yes, then your address proof is fine. Okay, that's the story from the point number one a couple of minutes ago. If I gave the building number, but I didn't give the apartment number, let's say the building has 200 apartments. What's gonna mailman do? Go through all of them? Heck no. So that's the idea. Always think about it. Will my mailman be able to send me a package to this address? Again, if the answer is yes, then it's a good and a quality document. Again, there are, of course, exceptions. As I mentioned earlier, we have Ireland, where people still use a P.O. box. The Americans, the Marines, have their army addresses in the bases where stationed. Think about it that way, okay? Again, I'm not gonna use my military address, I'm gonna use my address back home. However, in Ireland, where people have only a P.O. box, people will use a P.O. box. So it's fine to do that, okay. Tax bills and bank statements are, again, very much so self-explanatory. I would personally suggest everybody, if they're able to do that, please send us a bank statement, because you already went through the whole process with your bank. And that's the most valid and probably the best possible, if that's the best possible document to use. Of course, bank statements are not always in English. If it's possible for your bank to issue you a bank statement in English language, or any language we're actually, you know, like covering in support, which is English, Polish, Serbian, German, Spanish, Chinese Mandarin, Thai, Malay, by all means, please do that, okay? If it's not possible, send us what you have. So if you're in a position to use a bank statement, by all means, please do. That's the quickest route. Okay, temporary or expired documents. Again, a lot of people send these. There are some documents where you cannot see the expiration date, and that gives us a lot of trouble because we simply cannot determine if those documents are actually valid. In that sense, please make sure that the document is not temporary. We're going back to that story where, you know, the ID proof needs to be valid for at least 6 more months in the moment when you send it, and the address proof does not or should not be older than 3 months. So we cannot accept expired documents. We cannot accept temporary documents. We will again send you that vague email because through GDPR, we are not in a position legally to explain you what's exactly wrong. But if you go through these hints, your life gets easier. Actually, our lives too get easier. Okay, again, a reminder, we're recording this, so it will be available in back office. I hope Debbie will later explain more on that, and we will make sure to upload it somewhere for everybody to see it in the future, even though they're not on this call. Okay, altered or cropped black and white documents. If you have a document which is which is possible to be generated from the card itself, I mentioned that there are a lot of biometric chips around, you know, in the passports or driver's licenses or ID cards or what have you. If you can generate it, you know, just put the card in the card reader and generate the document from there. That will be perfect. If that's not possible, please do just scan the document and send us a scan again as a JPEG or a PNG format. We cannot accept documents which are altered or cropped because there is a good chance they're photoshopped. Okay, the same thing goes with black and white documents as well. Please, I know that somewhere and some people may experience issues because maybe they don't have the access to the actual in-color scanners, but please try to, find an in-color scanner which is scanning in color, because black and white documents, again, may raise a certain suspicion in the KYC system that it's all about photoshopping and, of course, forging the false documents. Okay. Again, yeah, this is something we actually covered. I actually covered this in previous points, but it's worth mentioning again. Uploading documents where necessary information is not visible as a function of a document, as a client's name or the institutional name. The idea, again, is for us to see what this document is. So it will say, an ID card, a personal card, the name of the client or the person. So we need, again, your first and last name clearly visible and spelled correctly. By all means, again, I repeat that same thing, but those things really happen often. Please do not put your nicknames in the KYC documents, please. I mean, if you some people change their names to life, and that's perfectly fine. Some people change their last names, whether it's a marriage or any kind of a different reason. And again, that's perfectly fine. However, when you're entering the details for KYC, please make sure that those details are matching the certain legally government issued document you have. Okay, so if you just decided to change your name and all of your friends call you with a different name, if your old name is on the document, please enter the old document. Again, I know this may seem or sound a bit vague or a bit obsolete, if you will, for some people, but believe me, those things happen. And as the last point, we always need two documents. You probably remember that on the point number 1, I mentioned that, for example, passports have their addresses in them, or there are certain documents. For example, this is an interesting example because we have a lot of customers for Poland, right? And we work and operate from Serbia. Polish and Serbian, that's very, interesting. Polish and Serbian ID cards are virtually the same. They literally look the same. Everything is in the same place. And we always kind of laugh about it. It's an interesting thing. You just, change the name of the country, the picture and the people's name, and that's it. However, some of those IDs, just like Serbian IDs, have their biometric chip, which means they don't have the address written on them. Some other, without the biometric chip, will have their address written on them on the backside. We need two different documents for the ID and for the address. So if you only upload your ID, we are not anymore, actually we were in that position previously. However, when the GDPR rules kicked in for the European Union and all the people who are working with any kind of a company that is linked with European Union in any way, GDPR rule says that we need two different documents. This is also absolutely, everything I mentioned today is absolutely valid for Carta and absolutely valid for Alliance Pay and DAS Pay as well. So what future brings us that everybody in the system are going to use Alliance Pay and DAS Pay because that's our big idea and our big vision. All this stuff regarding KYC will be necessary to be done this way with Carta. Actually, not with Carta, but with the Alliance or DAS Pay as well. So please make sure that you uploaded two documents, one for both. Okay, that's it for now. I'm just gonna stop screen sharing for a moment. Let's see. Okay. Okay, well, I hope this made sense. We have some 10 to 12 minutes. If anybody wishes to ask a question, okay, just one second. We have Sunil here. Sunil, please go on. I'm not sure if Sunil hears us. By all means, please do ask a question. Okay. Okay, one moment. Okay, Alvin, can you please go on? Alvin has a question as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to find out because I'm calling. I'm from Nairobi, Kenya. We are one of the people of countries that have been facing a lot of challenges with the KYC because we do not have an address system similar to what you have in the Western world. So, for instance, my bank statement only states the PO box. It doesn't have the physical address. And if you look at our system, for instance, the KYC that has been implemented for the mobile phone, I'm sure you're familiar with the mobile phone industry. And there's a product called M-Pesa. And we've got about 90% of the population that's using it. And the company found a way of KYCing through the link to the government registration system, which is called the IPRS system. Is it possible to look at that? Because we have a very different system. I know the address system you're talking about, for instance, the council in Europe, in Serbia, would confirm your address. And so you'll have a document. We do not have that. All we've got here is maybe a tax document, and not a very huge percentage of people have the proper tax documents. So is it possible to find a way of linking through the mobile and through the government registration system?
I see.
If it's possible, I could check whether, because there's a lot of companies that link to the system. I could find out whether it's possible and what the procedure is to link it to the system. And what the system does is that once you input your ID number, for instance, or you put in your mobile phone, it automatically picks your ID number and it verifies, especially now for the lower bit of the society.
I see. So is this something that's specific? I'm sorry. Is this something specific to Kenya as such, or all the Western Africa? Something?
No, it's mainly the African countries. You know, what you have, like what you're talking about, the address system, like my home. If I ask DHL to deliver something,
okay,
they can't deliver to my home. But we are talking about maybe 10% of the population, yeah. And your address system in Europe has been designed by the government. So the roads and everything, even in the informal settlements, you have roads and you have address systems. We do not have that as in the infrastructure of the state for most African countries was not formed with their address systems.
Understood.
So yeah, so how do we? Yet these are but there's other ways that we've used to KYC and verify that the users are the person they say they are. Is it possible to look at that? And also, I'm also familiar with the GDPR. Is that can we look at doing that within the compliance of that? And one other question on GDPR, the fact that you're saying the email is ambiguous. Is it in line if you do the double authentication? Is it possible, because double authentication is also a way of verifying that the person who's using is a person? I don't know, or could you just possibly after the meeting send me the specific section so I can try and interpret and see how we can implement on this side, and then come back to you on with suggestion on how to look at it. Yeah.
Original question. I will need to check that, because we do verify. I mean, I understand completely what you're saying. We do perform verifications, for example, for people, as I gave the example earlier about the Republic of Ireland, where some people also use PO Box.
Yeah.
In my mind, if I understand correctly what you're saying, I don't see any difference between these two cases, right? So if it's physically, you know, it's like some smaller places, they here or there use PO Box. I think there are a couple of more countries in Europe use that as well. But the idea is that if it's a smaller settlement or a differently arranged settlement, which relies on a PO box as the center of the mailing activity, if you will, then it would make sense to apply the same ruling. So that's my answer. I think
I'm also talking about 80% of the population does not have a PO box.
Oh, okay.
So
Sorry,
it's yeah.
Understood. The 80% of population does have a PO box, but
No, does not have a PO box.
I see. So how do you?
But the entire population has got an ID card. So what you have is that most companies that identify, like the biggest use case has been with the mobile phone industry, and we've got about I think between 35 million people that are registered out of a population of 50, and the mobile companies have registered because you have a lot of fraud in people obtaining fake IDs and using getting a number. So what they do is they refer to the government system, because to get an identity card, the government identity card, you have to register with the government. So the company goes and plugs into the government system, and it has a way of checking. So if you come and register, then your records are pulled from the government system, which is called the IPRS system. And a lot of companies are doing that. I'm not sure whether the scope of it, but that's what I can check. But that is a possible and most effective way that I think would be a solution for not just Kenya, but for most of the African countries, is that the settlement and the address system was not part of the urban planning.
Understood.
So, and because of the slum areas and what have you, yeah.
Understood. I just shared my email address with you. So please, by all means, you drop me an email down there in the chat box if you can see it. So please drop me an email.
Yeah.
You can see what we can do, because this is indeed a very serious thing, and it should be addressed as soon as possible. So for us to find some sort of a solution that would definitely, work for everybody. So thank you for that.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
I want to understand what's actually going on out there. So we can tap in.
Thank you.
The idea would be to actually tap into that government database, if you will, and to there fetch data about the users. So let's go to the email. Thank you for that. And I'm just going to make sure to this goes where it should go. Okay.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else, please? Okay. Okay, thank you again. I hope this made sense. Again, we have some 4 or 5 to 6 minutes of questions. So if anybody's interested in anything specific regarding the KYC, by all means, please do share something. So, oh, okay. Okay, there's a good idea from Debbie. Does anybody have any specific idea what would be a good topic for the next week? If so, please do share it in the chat box. Okay, Sunil is with us again. So let me enable you, sorry. Okay, please speak up, you're unmuted.
Hi, Pavle. How are you? How, Pavle?
Hi, how are you? Very good.
Good, thank you. I'm from Australia. I've been having an issue related. I think I emailed you as well yesterday with some of the documents. Yeah, I'm on chat with Janko at the moment with the same issue. One of my downlines has been facing this problem in regards to KYC approval. So he's uploaded a document which is a passport and electricity bill. Even now, he just did it, and I was next to him while he was doing it. But again, Janko has come back saying that, there is some mismatch in the document. I am unable to see any mismatch because the name is exactly as in the passport and the address is exactly as in the electricity bill as well. But I don't know why is it again been rejected. So because
okay, did you make sure that all the other details are fine as well?
yes, exactly, because I double checked this myself. I went into his profile, I saw his profile. He has a first name, middle name, and last name, and everything, including address, postcode, everything is perfect. But I'm still not sure why it's being rejected, because it's just because I was just texting. I just took all the snapshot of the text with Janko, and it's still been rejected again.
I see. Okay. I saw that we sent an email also with the explanation some 2 hours or 3 hours ago. I was advised by my team leads that was done. However,
Yes, exactly.
I'm gonna go through that personally, and I'm gonna personally respond to you by email later. So I'm gonna personally take
Just to let you know, I have emailed the same documents to you yesterday, the same passport and the electricity bill.
Okay,
you want, you can have it as well.
That's something I would like to thank you for reminding me. That's something I would definitely like to share with everybody. We have two very important points as well. Whenever you get the chance, thank you, Suni. Whenever you get the chance, please do not email us your documents. Okay, so do not email your documents via standard email attachment due to security reasons. There is a reason why our page is designed in a way it was designed for you to safely and securely send your documents, which are stored for the time needed for them to be whitelisted, actually verified. So please don't do that. We do have a special email address from a special mailbox we sometimes use, but that's which is actually safe, but that's the edge case, and we try to use that as less as possible. That's the first point. Second point, I came into this company some 15 months ago, and this is the first time I work in a company and for a company in the system which uses this type of marketing. Okay, so where you have a community, you have your advocates, your sponsors, your uplines, your downlines, all that stuff, binary stuff. Now, there are many positive points about that system, and I absolutely understand everybody out there who is a leader and who is a person. Their people and their downline look up to, as some sort of a inspirational person. You know what I mean? However, and on the other hand, I absolutely understand that all the leaders wish to do as much as possible for their downlines to show that they are care for their community. And that's perfectly fine. I absolutely understand that. However, there's one big however there. When doing the KYC, which is again, the verification of the person's identity, please, if possible, let people do that themselves. So I'm not saying that, let people go through the whole process themselves. They can always contact us. We're trying to be as approachable as possible. We try to reach out to everyone and to help everyone. It is not 100% legal from that standpoint, from the law standpoint, to try to complete the KYC for somebody else. Again, I know there is no ill intention or there is no bad heart in it. I understand that people who are leaders in the community wish to do as much as they can do for their downline. And that's, again, very admirable and very respectful. However, it does interfere with the whole compliance thing. Okay, so let people do that on their own. Think about it, think about it on a long run. If we teach people, let's start from the beginning. Let's teach people, how to do KYC. Let's teach people how to install their validators. Let's teach people how to open their DOS wallet. Let's engage people into the product and the community we are creating. Because if we do that, then we get the long-term commitment. And then we get that good word that goes out, on so many sides. My personal suggestion, and actually my most honest asking of you guys, is to please refrain from doing the very sensitive and a very serious things such as KYC for somebody else. We try to speak as many languages as we can. If there are out there people who are not comfortable with English language, again, we cover Spanish, we cover Polish, We covered Czech, Ukrainian, German, Italian. Okay, Serbian. Well, that's for Europe. Again, you can speak you can speak in Mandarin Chinese. You can speak in Malay. You can speak in Thai. On the edge case scenario, contact us in your native language. Maybe we will need a bit more time to translate and to make sure that we send a response, but please try to do the KYC yourselves. Everything else is perfectly fine. If you want to, that's why we create tutorials for, for the validators, for the purchases of licenses, all that stuff. You have tutorials and you have us on the chat and the email. But as for the KYC, please try to do that yourself. And as an advocate and as a, as a leader of this great community, by all means, please reflect that sort of a philosophy to your downline. Let people go through that themselves, because that's, again, a learning process, and it will make all the other things easier. Okay, if there are any, let's see, we have time for one more question. Yes, okay, Sunil's point does stand. He says that not everybody has the access to a computer, or not everybody is savvy in computers, and that's a valid point. That makes sense. However, in that sort of a scenario, please take time and sit down with those people and explain them how things work. Because it's a modern age, it's a computer age. I understand that not everybody has the access to a computer. I absolutely understand that, at least in this part of Europe. So I absolutely hear you, but again, it's still possible to, spend some time with the downline, sit down, show them how things work. That's their personal documents, guys, and that's very, very important. Okay, if there aren't any questions, thank you again. I'm gonna work something out. I'm gonna now definitely unmute Debbie. This is the longest time you've been muted, admit it.
I think everyone will agree that was another great call. Now, guys, just so you remember, and you can share with your downlines, this call will happen every Thursday at 10 a.m. UK, 11 a.m. CET, Central European Time. So make sure you put it in your diary. And the recording we will put live throughout the Facebook and WhatsApp and groups. Thanks, Linda. It's great to have Pavle on these calls, and it's also great to have feedback from the field and for Pavle to find out firsthand about the reasons why people are having issues. So it's, yeah, another fantastic call. Thank you, Pavle, and thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you. And just a short one more short point. We're going to try to figure out some way, maybe we can use a Telegram group for it or something like that, to see if we can vote up future topics for the next Thursday.
Yeah, I can do that. And Pavle, if you send me the recording, I'll make sure this recording goes out through all groups.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Peace.
Bye, guys.